The gate slammed so hard that the birds scattered from the almond tree. Namdi stood in the middle of the compound, drenched to the bone, clutching a soaked raffia bag with both hands, like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Thunder cracked over Umuahia. Rain fell in sheets, turning the red earth into a river that swallowed his sandals whole. "You'll never amount to anything," Chief Okonkwo Easy spat from the veranda, his agbada dry, his voice drier still. "You're lucky we even fed you all these years." Behind him, his wife folded her arms. Their eldest son smirked. Nobody moved to stop it. Nobody said a word in his defense. The gate slammed shut. 15 years later, 3 black SUVs rolled slowly up that same dirt road, past the same almond tree, now taller, past the same rusting gate, now repainted gold. The Ease family gathered on the veranda, smiling, straightening their clothes, expecting the foreign investor their lawyer had promised. A driver stepped out first and opened the rear door. The man who emerged wore a tailored navy suit. His shoes alone cost more than the Ease family's monthly income. He removed his sunglasses slowly, and the smile on Chief Ease's face collapsed into stone. It was him, the boy they threw into the storm. But nobody in that compound understood yet why he had come back. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Who was this man in the navy suit? What happened to him in those 15 years between the rain and the gold gate? Was he ever truly guilty of what they accused him of that night? Where did a servant with nothing but a wet bag disappear to? And how did he come back rich enough to sit at the same table as the man who once called him worthless? And the question that mattered most: why had he chosen to come back to this compound at all, when he could have simply forgotten it existed? Nobody in that courtyard had the answers. Not yet. But by the end of this story, you will understand that some debts are not paid in money. Some debts are paid in truth. And truth, once it starts walking toward you, cannot be stopped by any gate. Stay until the end, because what happens in that boardroom will not be what you expect. Namdi was 6 years old when his parents died in the flooding that swept through Ohafia during the rainy season nobody in the village has forgotten. He had no uncles willing to take him, no aunties with room in their homes. It was Mama Ngozi, the Ez family's cook at the time, who found him sitting outside the market shivering, and it was she who begged Chief Ease's father to let the boy stay and work for food and shelter. That was how Namdi came to live behind the big house, in the small room beside the generator shed, sleeping on a mat that smelled faintly of diesel and dust. He grew up sweeping compounds before the sun rose. He grew up carrying buckets of water up the hill before school, when there was time for school at all. He grew up watching the Ez children eat jollof rice from china plates while he ate Gary in the kitchen, alone, listening through the window to their laughter. But Namdi never once complained. "Why do you smile so much when they treat you like nothing?" Mama Ngozi asked him one evening, watching him hum while scrubbing pots by candlelight. "Because bitterness is heavier than this bucket, Mama," he said, "and I already carry enough." He was gentle with the old ones. Grandfather Ease, blind in one eye and forgotten by his own grandchildren, looked forward every morning to Namdi, bringing him warm pap and telling him stories from the market. Who married whom? Whose goat escaped? Which trader was cheating on his measurements? The old man laughed more with Namdi than he did with his own son. "You should have been born into this family," the old man told him once, gripping his hand with surprising strength. "You have more honor in your smallest finger than my son has in his whole body." Namdi only laughed it off. But someone was listening from behind the curtain. Adaiz, the chief's second daughter, was 14 and quiet, the kind of quiet that watches everything and says nothing. She saw how Namdi gave half his food to the younger children when their mother forgot to feed them on market days. She saw how he stayed up late fixing the generator so the house would have light for exams. She saw how her older brother Kelechi mocked him constantly, calling him gate boy in front of guests to make himself look important. She saw the hatred growing in Kelechi's eyes, not because Nnamdi had done anything wrong, but because their grandfather's affection for a servant boy embarrassed him. Nobody noticed Adawe's noticing. Nobody noticed the storm quietly building in Kelechi's heart either. Not until it was too late. The night it happened, rain had already started falling. A slow, warning drizzle that would not stop for 3 days. Chief Ez burst into the parlor holding an empty metal box, his hands shaking. "The money is gone," he said. 2 million naira. Gone, and the export documents with it. The house fell into chaos. Servants were questioned one by one, and then Kelechi, calm as still water, stepped forward. "I saw Nnamdi near your study last night, Papa, very late. I didn't think anything of it at the time." Every eye turned to the boy standing quietly by the doorway, a rag still in his hand from cleaning the kitchen. "I was fixing the generator," Nnamdi said, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "Ask Mama Ngozi. Ask anyone. I never touched your study." "Then how?" Kelechi said, producing a folded document with theatrical slowness. "Did we find this in your room?" It was one of the missing export papers, planted there hours earlier while Nnamdi swept the compound, though no one would ever admit it. "That is not mine," Nnamdi said, his voice cracking now, panic finally breaking through. "Somebody put that there. Please. 15 years I have served this house. 15 years, and you would believe this over me?" "Enough," Chief Ez thundered. "In my house, since I was a small boy, I have never tolerated thieves." "Then investigate," Nnamdi begged, falling to his knees on the cold cement floor. "Call the police. Let them search properly. Let the truth come out. I am begging you, not for myself, but because I have done nothing." Nobody called the police. Nobody wanted an investigation that might embarrass the family. It was easier, faster, cleaner, to simply remove the problem. "Get him out," Chief Ez said, turning his back. "Now, before the rain gets worse." 2 of the gatemen dragged Nnamdi out into the compound. Mrs. Ez watched from the veranda, arms folded, silent. Kelechi wore the faintest, cruelest smile. Neighbors gathered at their fences to watch, whispering behind their hands, the way people do when tragedy is not their own. "Please," Nnamdi cried, rain mixing with tears on his face. "Just let me speak, just 5 minutes, that is all I ask." "You'll never amount to anything," Chief Ez said instead, the words landing like a slap. "You're lucky we even fed you." The gate slammed shut behind him. From the upstairs window, hidden behind lace curtains, 14-year-old Adaze watched the boy who used to sneak her extra pieces of meat, who used to tell her grandfather stories that made him laugh until he coughed, standing alone in the rain with nowhere to go. She pressed her small hand against the cold glass and cried silently, not understanding yet why nobody had stopped it, only understanding that something deeply wrong had just happened in her house. Nnamdi stood outside the gate for a long moment, rain soaking through to his skin, his whole body trembling, not from cold, but from the weight of injustice pressing down on his chest like a stone. Then he wiped his face, picked up his small bag, and turned toward the darkness of the road. "One day," he whispered to himself, so quietly the rain nearly swallowed the words, "the truth will stand where I am standing now, and when it does, I will not need to say a single word in my defense." If you're still watching up to now, type "I'm still here" in the comments section. The first night he slept under the awning of a closed provision store, his bag as a pillow, his knees pulled to his chest against the cold. The second week, he found a construction site in Aba willing to pay laborers in cash, no questions asked. The foreman, a rough man named Chukwuemeka, took one look at Nnamdi's hollow eyes and gave him a shovel. "You look like a man running from something," Chukwuemeka said. "I am running from nothing," Namdi replied, lifting a bag of cement onto his shoulder. I am running towards something. I just don't know what yet. He carried blocks. He mixed cement until his palms cracked and bled. He slept in a shared room with 5 other laborers, all of them exhausted, all of them dreaming of something better than concrete dust and aching backs. At night, under a single bulb, he taught himself to read business textbooks a former teacher had given him years earlier. He studied by candlelight when the power went out, which was often. He wrote numbers in a small notebook. How much he saved that week, how much he needed to start something of his own, how far away that goal still seemed. Rejection followed him like a shadow. Banks laughed him out of their offices when he asked for a loan with nothing but calloused hands as collateral. Investors did not return his calls. A man he trusted with his small savings disappeared with the money, leaving Namdi with nothing but a lesson paid for in blood and sweat. He almost gave up more times than he could count. There were nights he sat alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering if Chief Ease had been right, if he really was a boy who would never amount to anything. Then came Mazi Okoye, an old textile trader, sharp-eyed and unimpressed by wealth. Mazi Okoye watched Namdi for months as he worked at the Aba market, noticing how he never cheated a customer even when it would have been easy, how he returned excess change without being asked, how he treated the poorest buyer with the same respect as the richest. Integrity like yours is rare in this market, the old man said one afternoon, sitting across from Namdi's small fabric stall, the one he had built with 3 months of construction wages. Rare things should be invested in. Mazi Okoye gave him a loan with no interest and one condition, that Namdi never forget where he came from once he succeeded. I will not forget, Namdi promised. I could never forget. The small fabric stall became a shop. The shop became a warehouse. The warehouse became a textile export company, moving Ankara and lace across borders, first to Lagos, then to Accra, then to markets in Europe hungry for authentic African fabric. By his 10th year away from the Ease compound, Namdi's company employed over 300 people. He built a scholarship fund for orphans, quietly, without his name attached, because that was never why he did it. Meanwhile, across the country, the Ize family's fortunes had begun to crumble like dry clay. Kelechi, now running his father's export business, made reckless deals to fund a lifestyle he could not sustain. Contracts fell through, debts piled up. The very documents that had disappeared all those years ago, the real ones, hidden by Kelechi himself in a panic after gambling away company funds, had left permanent gaps in the company's records that eventually caught up with him. Chief Ez, older now and increasingly ill, watched helplessly as the business he built crumbled beneath his son's mismanagement, unaware that the true thief had been sitting at his own dinner table the entire time. If your heart is racing right now, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, do you think he came back for revenge or for something else entirely? The truth finally surfaced the way most buried things do, slowly and then all at once. Adez, now a grown woman working as a junior accountant for her family's struggling company, was the one who found it. Going through old storage boxes to salvage what records remained before the business collapsed entirely, she discovered a sealed envelope tucked behind a filing cabinet that had not been moved in 15 years. Inside was a letter, unfinished, in her brother Kelechi's handwriting, dated the week before Namdi was thrown out. A confession of gambling debts, a desperate plan to take company funds and blame someone who could not fight back. Her hands shook as she read it. 15 years of guilt she had carried silently, for staying quiet, for being too young and too frightened to speak up, came rushing back with a force that nearly broke her. She confronted Kelechi that same night, the letter trembling in her grip. How could you let an innocent boy suffer for something you did? She demanded, tears streaming down her face. He was a child, Kelechi. He was 14 years old, and you destroyed his life to protect yourself. Kelechi could not meet her eyes. It was a long time ago, Adais. What good does it do to dig it up now? It does good, she said, because the truth deserves to breathe, even after 15 years buried in the dark. She took the letter to their father, now frail, now humbled by failing health and failing business alike. Chief Ease read it in silence, his hands trembling, the weight of what he had done finally landing on his chest like a stone he could not lift. "What have I done?" he whispered, over and over. "What have I done to that boy?" 3 weeks later, their lawyer informed them that a private equity firm had made an aggressive but fair offer to acquire the company's remaining assets, enough to settle their debts and leave the family with dignity intact, if barely. They did not know the identity of the buyer until the day of signing. That was the day the 3 black SUVs rolled up the dirt road, past the almond tree, past the Golden Gate, and a man in a navy suit stepped out and removed his sunglasses. The boardroom was silent except for the ceiling fan turning overhead. Chief Iz sat across the table, thinner now, older, his hands folded tightly to hide their trembling. Mrs. Ez stared at the table, unable to lift her eyes. Kelechi sat rigid, jaw clenched, waiting for the reckoning he knew he deserved. Only Adais looked directly at Namdi, her eyes wet but steady. "I know what you must be expecting," Namdi said finally, his voice calm, carrying none of the storm from that rainy night 15 years ago. "I did not come back for revenge." Chief Iz's voice broke. "I was wrong. I never investigated. I never gave you the chance to speak. I let my son's lies destroy an innocent boy's life, and I have carried that shame every day since, even before I knew the whole truth of it." "I know," Namdi said quietly. "Adaize sent me the letter last week. I have known for 7 days what really happened that night." Kelechi finally lifted his head, bracing for the anger he had earned. It never came. "I am not here to ruin what is left of this family," Namdi continued. "I am here because I made a promise to myself in the rain that night, that one day the truth would stand exactly where I once stood, humiliated, with nowhere to go, and it has. That is enough for me." He kept every honest worker in the company's employment. He restructured what remained with fair wages and real investigation processes, the very thing that had been denied to him. He offered Kelechi a chance to work under proper supervision, to rebuild something real instead of something built on fear and family name. Chief Iza, tears finally falling freely down his weathered face, reached across the table with a shaking hand. "Rain can wash away comfort," Namdi said, taking the old man's hand gently. "But it can never wash away character. That is the only lesson I ever needed to learn from this house." If this story touched something in you, we would love to know. If you were in his place, would you have forgiven them the way he did? Or do you believe true justice should have looked different? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder today that rejection is never the end of the story. Sometimes it is only the beginning of a much greater one. Thank you for watching until the very end. We will see you in the next unforgettable story.